Henry Hyde, who is a substantial fellow, when he comes to the podium and somebody was clapping for him, proudly clapping for him, he had this marvelous way of doing this number. And so, you kind of see it over here. But you had to be as sort of portly as Henry in order to pull it off well. I was thinking about doing that here, but you might not have gotten it. Henry used to do it. It's terrific. So, wow, what an exciting thing to be with you all here. You're going to succeed. Yeah. And I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you're going to succeed. Number 1, the right DNA. Number 2, the right approach. And number 3, a singular focus. So first of all, the right DNA. I don't think that Marshall is here, but I did see Pam. The DNA of an organization is set right at the beginning. Now, I will tell you, it is really true. I've seen it in organization after organization. The people who organize the thing to start with set the DNA of the organization. And so you're growing from Marshall Saunders' beautiful heart on this. And the result is that you are going to that DNA is reflected in this organization. I met Marshall when he tried to ride to the rescue in 2010 as I was losing a Republican primary. Marshall came in with maximum contributions to try to save me in that reddest district in the reddest state. And I very much appreciated not just his financial support, but also the spirit with which he gave it and the determination that was in his soul about this issue. And so, first, you're just going to succeed because you've got the right DNA. So give Marshall a hand, would you? Second, you're going to succeed because you've got the right approach. And that is an approach that I think Marshall and others have either borrowed from results. The idea is to come alongside and affirm people with voting cards in their pockets. Not to talk to them at the end of the pointed finger, but to rather affirm them. Find something to congratulate them on. And I want you to know that this, who's typified by my friend Ellie over here, for example, as I told some folks in Atlanta, it is the height of that standard to say to my friend and somebody who's going through a very difficult time right now, Eric Cantor, say to him a year ago or so, Eric, don't leave Congress without solving this challenge. Please don't leave Congress without solving this challenge. Well, so we have less time than we thought. But still, the point is that we never know. I didn't know how much time I had. Eric didn't know how much time he has. But the fact is that Ellie approached it, affirmed Eric. And I can tell you, it worked on me in other places. So the results came to me over my second time in Congress. And I'm from the reddest district and reddest state. But these 2 results people would come every year, maybe twice a year, really. And they'd start out by insisting on giving me a hug. And that got to be nice. After the subsequent visits, I was thinking, okay, here it comes. It was very nice and very affirming, and you know what? They really moved me because of their persistence and their consistent affirmation and wanting to help and wanting to find a way of love through this. Pretty impressive. So you've got the right approach. And really, I think that is the DNA starts there, it follows with the right approach. And then the third reason you're going to be successful is that you're singularly focused. I think I'm correct about this, that CCL would be very happy to go out of existence. The idea here is to get it done and then move on to something else. And so it's not that you're trying to build Mark and Steve and whoever into some grand organization that's going to last for this and that and this next issue. It's rather this singular focus to achieve one objective, the pricing of carbon dioxide, and then move on. And so that singular focus is going to make you successful. Because there are a lot of folks that speak in this space that have all kinds of other agendas and imperatives in their organization. You don't. You're completely encumbered by those other kinds of restraints. I won't mention any names, but other organizations are very hesitant to speak sometimes about this or that because they're trying to work on this other issue or that little thing. Not you. You're able to speak boldly and consistently and singularly on this topic. So 3 reasons why you're going to be successful. And so, likewise, I'm in an organization that's trying to do the same thing, to work ourselves out of a job, to get out of this business and to move along to something else. Now, it hopefully is going to come sooner rather than later for the planet's sake. We've got to get this done quickly. But just in case some of you, some in the planet heard all this, but I got to tell you, use me as a case study, okay, about how to maybe approach a conservative member of Congress. And by the way, you got to assume, anybody talking, if you don't know anything about my story, you got to assume, listen, he's talking to a group of people who are concerned about climate. There's no way he's a conservative. That definitionally means you're at least a moderate, and maybe something toward progressive, right? Well, I'm talking about that singular focus. I'm glad you're singularly focused, because otherwise you probably wouldn't let me in the room. Some of you because, there are probably a few of you who would have a very different voting record than mine if you had been in Congress when I was. 93 American Conservative Union rating, 100% Christian Coalition, 100% National Right to Life, A with the NRA, 0 with the Americans for Democratic Action, and 23 by some mistake with the AFL-CIO. I really wanted a 0. Now half the crowd here said, yeah, we definitely are not with this guy on any of those things, right? So pretty conservative fellow. But for 6 years, in my first 6 years in Congress, I said climate change was hooey. Al Gore's imagination. Total nonsense. I hadn't looked into it at all. It was total ignorance on my part. All I knew was Al Gore was for it, and therefore I was against it. And so, had a great press conference one time, made fun of Al Gore, set up in front of some sacks of coal and firewood in downtown Greenville, South Carolina. The district I worked in, it was a wonderful place, Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina. One of the 6 back then, now we've got 7 congressional districts in South Carolina. And so we set up in front of these sacks of coal and firewood, and we said, Al Gore is trying to raise poor people's heating bills. Vote Republican. And worked pretty well. Had a great press conference. Then I was out 6 years. I'd committed to term limits my first go-round, so I said I would leave. I ran for the Senate unsuccessfully in 98. So I was back in commercial real estate law for 6 years. During that time, my kids were growing up. So when I ran for Congress again in 2004, my son, our oldest of 5 kids, came to me and said, he just turned 18, so he was voting for the first time. He said, Dad, I'll vote for you, but you're going to clean up your iPhone environment. That was step one. Because his mother agreed, his 4 younger sisters agreed, all of whom could change the locks on the doors, had new constituents. Very important to respond to key constituencies. And so that was step one. Step 2 was getting on science committee, going to Antarctica, seeing the evidence in ice core buildings. For this is my simplistic understanding of this. You know, I'm not a scientist, but I played one on the science committee when the lights came on. It's just this, you know, when I'm burning a tree in my fireplace in the winter, no big deal, right? That tree has been growing on my farmette maybe. I cut it down, I put it in the fireplace, I burn it, I release the CO2. That tree has just been sinking as part of its life's process. I'm putting it right back in the air, no big deal. But if I go deep into the earth and pull up trees that are long gone and burn them in the form of fossil fuels, I'm changing the chemistry of the air. The physics of light then take over, and light enters with radiant heat as an escape. We have warming. By the way, nobody in the scientific community, or among the spheres of the science, doubts any of what I've just said. They all agree to that. They agree to the chemistry, they agree to the physics. What they disagree about is the impact of man and humankind as part of that, right? And they agree we have impact. But you have an answer for that, and we have good science on that it can explain that it really is a large impact. A quarter of the CO2 in the atmosphere is from us, from the burning of fossil fuels. So we know that. I'm acting like a scientist here, aren't I now? Anyway, so that's step 2, is going to Antarctica and seeing that in the ice core drillings. So what you see in the ice core drillings is stability followed by an uptick that coincides with the Industrial Revolution. Well, doesn't that just sort of make sense that you would see that? That there'd be this stability followed by this uptick. The uptick has to do with the burning of fossil fuels starting in the Industrial Revolution. And then the third step for me was really a spiritual epiphany, going to another science committee trip, this one to the Great Barrier Reef, snorkeling with an Aussie climate scientist who, without words, communicated to me that we shared a worldview. We hadn't had any opportunity for words really to talk about what we believed, but in watching him interact with nature, and seeing his reaction, I could tell that he was worshiping God in the creation. He wasn't worshiping the creation. He was worshiping the God behind the creation. So we'd dive down, he'd show me something, he'd come up, and he'd be all excited. His face, his eyes, his voice, you could tell that he was in the process of worshiping God for what he was seeing and showing me. Later we had the opportunity to share deep words about what we believed, and sure enough, we do in fact share a worldview, and he's become the best friend in the whole world. And so he told me about changes he was making in his life, conservation changes he's making in his life in order to love God and love people. People that we'll never know, because they'll come long after us. And I thought, that is really neat. I want to be like Scott, loving God and loving people. So I came home and introduced the Raise Wages, Cut Carbon Act of 2009. Now this is what Mark could have gone on to say. That was probably not a particularly good political move. Because in the midst of the Great Recession, to be talking about carbon taxes in the reddest district in the reddest state probably isn't very timely. But I'm so convinced that you're right, that this works on the right, that eventually this will be accepted as the new orthodoxy of the right. That eventually my former colleagues, I guess I'm their former colleague, they're still colleagues, I'm the former, eventually they will see that Art Laffer is exactly right. And you don't have to believe, as I do and perhaps you do, that really we are responsible for this climate change, and we do need to take action. You can be, as Art Laffer is, agnostic as to climate change. But he says, as you'll visit our website at energyenterprise.com, he says in a long-playing version of a speech he gave at Vanderbilt's business school for us, he says, I don't need to know whether it's real or not. All I need to know is you are taxing something you want more of, income. And you're not taxing something you maybe want less of, CO2. He says, it is a no-brainer. Change what you tax. And so It's what you just heard about in this economic study that you just saw for the last hour, is that this will be, when you're going to visit Hill offices to talk to Republicans, conservatives, I'm sure you're going to make sure they know about that study. And that even if they aren't with you on the science and haven't had the experience in Antarctica or haven't had the spiritual experience with Scott in Australia, still they can see the sound economics you're talking. If we can just give them some place to feel some support, some sense of support underneath them. And I was just talking on the way in here to someone who wanted to know if I could speak with their member of Congress and help make the secondary request or something. Yeah, I can, because those people are my friends, but it doesn't matter as much as what you do, because you, from their district, make all the difference in the world. Now, of course, here's the thing you got to know, and this is what we're about to find out, I think, with the wonderful presentation that's going to be part of our presentation here. I guess soon we're going to hear some elevator talks from people that are going to reach Republicans. The thing that, as you hear these elevator speeches, put yourself in the place of a member of Congress. Imagine that you have walked in the same places with my friend Eric Cantor. And you know what's just happened to Eric. And you know what happened in 2010 to a guy named Bob Inglis, let's say. And you're thinking, how am I going to explain this at the Republican convention coming up? That I'm for what you're asking them to be for. And so, with that mindset, thinking of putting yourself in that person's shoes, entering into their situation, realizing how difficult it is, what you have to do is evaluate these elevator speeches and see if they can get through. So, why don't we have the elevator speakers come up here and then we can talk some more after that. Is that what happens next with elevator speakers? I think there's an elevator speaker coming.